Welcome to Handmade Happenings. I'm Marissa. Recently, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, wore this amazing gown to a state banquet. And it didn't take long for me to decide that I wanted to recreate this in doll size. So this is a gold lace evening coat worn over a white strapless gown. From what I can tell, the lace bodice closes in the front and the skirt is left open, which you can see in certain pictures. For my version, I chose white satin, which I bought from Walmart in like a pre-cut piece. I didn't realize how thin this was when I bought it. I would have preferred something thicker as that is easier to work with, but on the other hand, thinner fabric sometimes hangs better on such a small scale. And for the overlay, I found full gold lace on Etsy. I started with the bodice. For the base, I used a strapless pattern, which was made by modifying the basic pattern that I have for my dolls. I cut 2 pieces for the front and 4 pieces for the back. Then I took the 2 front pieces and placed them right sides together and sewed across the top edge. Did the same with the back. Then I flipped all of them right sides out, lined up all of the edges, and pressed each piece. Now this fabric was so finicky that I did have to pin everything in place using glass head pins, which don't melt, before I press them. And this gave me 1 front piece and 2 back pieces that were lined. I set those pieces aside while I cut out the lace bodice using a basic pattern. And I'm not doing a front opening on the bodice, so I cut out 1 front piece and 2 back pieces. Next, I basted the white pieces to the wrong side of the corresponding lace pieces. So front to front and back to back. Now I can treat these pieces as one piece. And I did this to hide more of the lace seams and to hopefully make it less bulky than it would be if I did it as 2 separate layers. Now I'm sewing the front and back darts. Now these were marked on the base layer, but remember, I'm treating everything as one piece and therefore sewing through all of the layers. Then I sewed the front to the back at the shoulder seam. I cut 2 long sleeves from the lace using the scallops as the hem. And I hand sewed these to the bodice because with the tricky nature of both the fabric and the pattern, it was actually easier and faster to do it this way than by machine. Catherine's dress has a collar. It's kind of like a mandarin collar, at least that's what I would consider it. So I cut a 1-inch wide strip of lace, folded it in half with the right sides together, and sewed each short end. I then flipped it right side out and cut it in half. Then I sewed each piece to the neckline, placing the finished edge at the center front of the bodice. I then went back and sewed the seam down so that the collar would sit properly. Finally, I sewed the side seams and was done with the bodice. And at this point, I decided I should probably try it on the doll. And the sleeves were a bit tight, but it did fit, which was a good thing because if not, I think I would have ended up just restarting because trying to unpick stitches in lace doesn't tend to work very well. Onto the skirt. For the base, I chose to do a simple floor-length A-line skirt. So I cut out a front and back piece from the white satin, which I sewed together at the side seams. Then I turned up and hemmed the bottom edge. Now I folded this piece in half and placed it on the lace, lining up the folded edge, which is the center front, with the scallop of the lace. And I used this to cut out the top edge of the skirt, but the original dress has a slight train, so I used an existing pattern to cut the hemline and get that look. I tried to freehand that at first, but it just didn't look right, so I figured it was better to use a pattern that already had it figured out. And this gives me 2 lace skirt pieces. And I layered the lace on top of the satin, again with the wrong side of the lace to the right side of the satin, and with the scalloped edges meeting at the center front. Then I basted them together at the waist. Next, I sewed the skirt to the bodice at the waist seam, then turned under and hemmed the back opening by hand. I sewed the rest of the back seam on the machine, going through 4 layers, so the 2 layers of the satin and the 2 layers of lace. And I added 3 snaps as closures. Wow, I'm so happy with how this turned out. It's not an exact replica, but I think if you've seen the dress, then you'd recognize it in this, which is exactly what I was going for. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for another handmade happening.